We've got Deb Williams here. She is a motorsports writer, award-winning, I might add.
Yes.
So Deb, tell me something. Tell me what your very first memory of the Daytona 500 is.
Well, the Daytona 500 was always very special around our house. And my first memory was in 1962 when my dad and several of his friends went to the Daytona 500. And I was very, very angry because I was not allowed to go. I was a child and was not allowed to go because it was a group of men. But he brought me back the program and a little space gun that when you pull the trigger on it, it made a noise and flashed. And so that was kind of to make up for me not getting to go to the Daytona 500. But that was the one that Fireball Roberts dominated that year and won the pole, won the qualifying race, won the 500. And so that was when I really zoned in on the Daytona 500, even though the family always talked about it. And for several years, my dad always took vacation that February, and the plan was that we would go to the Daytona 500, but I always came down sick with the flu, and I don't think Mother would have wanted me to have missed school anyway. But then when they started showing it on closed-circuit television at city auditoriums and theaters in 1967, we always made the trip to Asheville every February to watch it on closed-circuit TV until that was discontinued.
Oh, wow. Nice. Well, you watched it on TV a lot. Tell me about your very first experience of being at the track, as maybe a fan or just driving by the track during the 500.
Well, actually, the first time I ever went to the Daytona 500, I went as a reporter and covered it for United Press International. And I really couldn't believe that I was getting to cover the Daytona 500 for an international wire service. And it was almost like, man, this is what I have worked for and dreamed of since I was 13 years old. So it was in awe, and the working conditions were so different from what they are now. You know, there were no cell phones, there were very few, there were no laptops, and Radio Shack had just come out with a TRS-80 Model 100, which we called a Trash 80. And I knew Mike Harris with the Associated Press had one of those, and I was not going to go to Daytona and have to compete against him without one. So I went to Radio Shack and bought my own because UPI at the time was only supplying them to their full-time sports writers. And I went down there, and it was so funny because we had acoustic couplers to go with the what was then a computer, but it only held a few stories. You had nothing you could keep forever and call up. If you wanted a hard copy, you had to carry a printer and print it out. You know, there were community telephones, and the wire services always had a direct line installed because we had to file so fast. But you weren't familiar with direct lines. You know, there was no Wi-Fi or anything like that. And I remember I was having to file a story for the first qualifying race while the second one was in progress. And I would start filing as the cars went into the first turn, but the story wouldn't be filed by the time they came back around to the front stretch, and the noise from the cars would break the connection with the acoustic couplers, and you'd have to start filing all over again. The media center was very dark. It had a portable TV in it and just a workbench around the edge of it. Most everyone worked in the press box, particularly once the races started. The winners were always brought to the press box, and the rest of the people, you were on your own for getting them. Usually the top 5 were at the gas pump, so you had to chase people down. And there were, you know, social events, you were done by 5 in the afternoon. The garage shut down at 5, no night racing. And you were done at the track at 7. And I was very fortunate in that I had a lot of veteran motorsports writers and PR people take me under their wing and say, okay, this is what you need to do. And I remember Bob Latford told me, you need to make a name tag for yourself so people know that you're a United Press International's person. And Gene Granger told me, he said, you don't get the stories in the garage, you get the stories in the bars after the garage closes. And so it was an entirely different world than what it is now.
So what's, as far as like your favorite Daytona 500, there's a lot, so each one of them has a little bit different story, but which one struck you on an emotional level?
Probably the Dale Earnhardt win.
Yeah?
Yeah, because he had tried for so long. And just to see every race team come out on that pit road and greet him after that. And then I will have to say, in conjunction with that, when Dale Jarrett won his first one in 1993 for Joe Gibbs, and CBS, let Ned Jarrett call it as a father from the on TV. But you know, everybody it was the Dale and Dale show, and to see Dale Jarrett hold off Dale Earnhardt for that win and the emotion that existed there, those two really stand out in my mind as far as emotion, just raw emotion. And you know, it's interesting, all the ones, I guess, with Dale Earnhardt, because in 1990, when Dale lost the Daytona 500, going into the third turn when he cut the tire and Derek Cope won, it's the only time I've ever seen tears in Dale Earnhardt's eyes. And of course, we all rushed to Dale's car. We're three deep, kind of semicircled around his car. And J.R. Rhodes went up to the car. And everybody, you know, it would be interesting to see if today's media would allow Dale to gain his composure. But all the media respected Earnhardt so much that we all stood there and allowed Dale to gain his composure. And he took his helmet off, and he sat there for a few minutes. And that was when I saw the tears in Earnhardt's eyes. And I was right on the front row. With me being short, I can kind of scoot under people's legs and around and everything. And when he climbed, we all waited till he climbed out of the car. And when he climbed out of the car, of course, then everybody shoved forward to talk to him. But yeah, the Dale Earnhardt, I would probably say, has created most of the memories of the Daytona 500 for me. And then Dale Jarrett as well.
Deb Williams, thank you so much.
It's always a pleasure.
Deb Williams, award-winning motorsports writer.
Hi, I'm Deb Williams, veteran motorsports writer. Now that you've heard my first Daytona 500 story, I'd like to hear yours at #MyFirst500.